Welcome to our third webinar or informal chat with Ask the Expert. We started with xPM, we moved into AI, but now we have the pleasure of talking about resourcing with Peter. Welcome, Peter. Peter, do you want to maybe introduce yourself to the crowd?
Yes, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter. I am the product owner of Team Planner in Projectum and have been for 5 years, but I'm also turning into a more capability owner role inside resource management, or actually what I like to call it in the resourcing part, because this session is, of course, about resource management, and I see a lot of different aspects in it.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, so today we're talking about resourcing. Now, I think, as me and you both have known, because we've both been in resourcing for a while now, the way that we've talked about it changed, and it is changing, and it's what we like to do with our customers, with our product, is to change with it. But I think for a long time we spoke about resource management, right? That was the thing that we talked about. That's what probably a lot of customers or people that are on this call right now that can relate to is resource management. But could you maybe take some words about how that has changed, explain kind of why that's changed and kind of where we are going with maybe some different frameworks within that?
Yes, indeed. So I have been working with this area for about 5 to 6 years with deep dive into our customers and trying to consult in how we work with resourcing, or as our customers often say, resource management in different areas. And whenever someone comes to us and say we need something with resourcing or resource management, we have tried to figure out what the need is, but I think we have along the way also seen the changes in the market and how our customers are approaching not only the PPM, but what we also call xPM. So anything portfolio management. It's not just only projects anymore. It could be products. It could be working agile across waterfall. So we have seen the landscape changing over the years. And that's why the past year or half a year have tried to develop what we in Projectum call the resourcing framework. Because for me, it's not only resource management. Resource management is one bit of it, but beneath the resourcing framework, there are different pillars. That could be anything from work management, where it's basically just I create tasks or epics as a PM, project manager, on my plan or schedule, all the way to capacity management, where it's much more strategic focus. We call it the 100% method. It's very important. We have the full overview of our resources capacity, the available capacity, what are they working on, projects, non-projects. So in between here, we have different pillars. And I think the main or the most important for us right now is what we call resource planning, which is mainly the focusing for project managers planning their resources to succeed in the project. Then we have enterprise resource planning, where we're introducing the line manager, but with no formal handshake. This is done in an email or status meeting or a staffing meeting. And then the next part is, of course, the resource management part, where it's more formal. We have a demand and we have a formal handshake or a digital contract between the project manager and line manager. And this is a very complex process, but we have tried with the resource framework to make it easier to understand, not only for us as a company, but also for the companies we're basically helping, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's a great point that you make, easy for us to understand too, because I think for a long time, it had been one size fits all, but not all businesses fit one size, right? And it's the same with project management, with portfolio management. Everyone does it differently. So I think why should resourcing be any different, right? So I think it's really great that there's now a big array. I think some of the topics that you've brought up are really good. Some of them we're going to touch on, especially some of the different types of work. But one thing that I'd like to maybe dive into is the different personas or the different kind of people that are involved in resource management, because as I just said, it's not one size fits all.
No.
We have project managers, we have portfolio managers, we have line managers, we have so many different people. So do you want to explain potentially how this new framework kind of fits with these new maybe personas, or how does it help kind of make decisions across the business?
Yes, indeed. So let's start with you already had a session on xPM, so you have touched into the anything portfolio management, which is a very important aspect for us in Projectum. And this is also why we need to have a setup that facilitates that. It's not only projects anymore. I need resources for my projects. I can need resources for anything, products, programs, portfolios, ideas, whatever they are called out there, right? So it has been very important to facilitate that and have a dialogue around it. And what we have also included in this framework is, of course, we call it the decision level triangle. I think you have seen it. But basically, we have the strategic part on top. And in between, we have the tactical layer. And then on the bottom, we have the operational layer. And this is touching upon the different personas. So the strategic layer is, of course, this is where we measure our key result, OKRs, value outcomes, etc. We have our strategic prioritization and ranking across our portfolio or inside the portfolio we have. And this is, of course, typically where we see the role of the PMO, the portfolio management, or the portfolio committee, right? We have higher level based on the strategy. And in the middle layer, we have the tactical, which is typically where the line manager operates. They are basically trying to balancing and executing the availability of their resources. That could be new projects coming in, already running projects. How are we facilitating the capacity that I have to ensure they have something to work on and not having too much free capacity, right? And at the bottom, where is the operational level, is typically where the project manager is trying to handle the task and assignments and the resource planning in short term, right? So do I have the resources I need to fulfill my project, and have I created tasks, etc.? So we have tried, to take this decision level and put the different personas in and trying to figure out how does this fit into an organization, because in some areas, we might only have the strategic or operational level. So it could be that we are not having the line manager as such, but basically the project manager is putting in what resources they need. We could call it the resource budget or the project budget. And this is something they're submitting directly to the strategic level, and then we're taking a decision on that, right?
That's awesome. And it's good to know that, we're not just looking at kind of one layer or maybe one persona, because I think previously what we'd done right with resource management is it had typically really aimed at the line manager and the PMO. Right?
And we have tried to include all resources or all personas, right? So that means there is a lot of change management part into this, right? But allowing for us to keep out a layer, it could also be the operational part when we are talking mainly about resources, allows for easier implementing resourcing in an organization, because we don't need to do change management for both project managers, line managers, and the PMO, right? But we can facilitate based on the need and how the organization is basically structured.
That sounds awesome. I think maybe some of the things that you're saying are awesome, especially some of the concepts related to decision making. But I think maybe to help people on the call, what would be kind of your go-to for assessing a framework? Because there's a lot in here, right? There's a lot of personas, there's a lot of different viewpoints, organizational structures. What is your kind of go-to for the best way to kind of assess resourcing in a business?
So basically, with the resourcing framework, we have introduced some slides. I think we can share them afterwards in some way. But basically, we have a slide where we're having different pillars I'm talking about. So resource planning, enterprise resource planning, etc., where we have some check marks. How or what is it that you're actually trying to solve inside your organization? So that could be capacity management. We want to make sure we fully understand the full capacity of all resources. Or it could be basically we want to see what are the different resources working on over time, which project, for example. So that's, of course, one thing to start assessing. But based on that, also the decision layer we just talked about. So in which different area do you have your focus? Is the strategic, tactical, or operational? It can be all of them. It can be one of them or even two of them, right? So that's very much depend. But one of the most important things for us is, of course, the organization structure. So is it a line organization or is it a matrix organization? And whenever I say this, it's also important to mention most of those companies we basically consult are matrix organization. But it's not the company as whole. It's the business unit or the area that we are introducing the resourcing framework. And here that could be a line organization or a matrix organization.
Yeah.
And the best way to differentiate that, and what I have seen, is to say that a matrix organization having cross portfolios across business units.
Yes.
So basically, you need resources to succeed with your portfolio and underlying projects with resources from different business unit.
Yep.
So that could have business unit A, portfolio A is needing resources from business unit 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
But the portfolio B need only resources from 1 and 3. That's how we categorize a matrix organization. So prioritizing portfolio across business units.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas the line organization is more simple. Typically, it's kept inside the organization itself or the business unit. So portfolio A is executed by the business unit A. And I know the real world is not that black and white, right? So there are examples where, yes, it's a mix of those. But typically, this helps a lot when I'm talking with customers about this, because they can see themselves in either or, of course, with some modification. But this very much helps into what is the good solution in terms of a tooling, and what can we do in Projectum to help figure out what is the best way. So again, the line and matrix organization assessment is very important.
Awesome. And I think we've seen it in action. I think, I've heard you using it with customers already, right?
Yes.
That look at these slides that you present with these frameworks, and they can understand exactly where you go. Okay, actually, we're here. We're a little bit of this, because it's not black and white.
Exactly.
We're a little bit of this. We're a little bit of that, but we're mainly in this pillar. And that, I think, from our perspective, obviously helps a lot when we're consulting, right? Because we can say, actually, we're very clear about where you are, so we kind of know potentially what tools. We're going to talk about tools soon, and we are going to do a demo. So we're not going to talk the whole time, but maybe just before we talk about tooling, we had a really good question come through before the session around kind of buy-in from leadership. So I think, as we both know, resourcing, as far as it goes, can be quite, if you think about it at a high level, can be quite simple, right? You put people on projects to work, but in actual implementation, it is really quite complex, and there's a lot to it. This question was related around to them going through a bit of a restructure, but, how would you go about selling this to leadership, telling them that it is not micromanagement, but a way to kind of help the company get through the reorg and kind of come out the other end, even better?
Yes. So I actually think we already touched a bit about this, but I like the question because then we can deep dive into how we constructed this together. Yes. So to get the buy-in from the leadership is, of course, to figure out how does this actually create benefits. So what benefits do they get out of it, and who should we implement, right? The personas.
Yes.
The benefit is, of course, we get an overview of what projects are we running inside our portfolio, and what resources is actually committed or allocated to these projects, and how is it? Do we have any bottlenecks? Do we need to hire some consultants or internal people to actually fulfill this portfolio, right? That is, of course, the main benefit most of our companies or customers are actually going to get out of it, right? And how do we achieve that? You mentioned the reorganization, right? But I also like to say, who needs to be involved? Is it the project manager or line manager? Because I typically come out and then it's a business unit. They are using Excel today. It's the line manager filling out with their resources. This person works on this project and this project, and then type it into Excel. But this Excel is kept on their desktop or OneDrive, and it's not transparent for the organization or the leadership to actually have this information, right? So first of all, we are kind of putting it digital, putting it into a tool where everyone can have an database access, and we can create reports to actually get this, what should we say, leadership report to actually have, okay, do we have any bottlenecks? In other cases, it's the project managers that need it, right? So they need to be sure they are flagging what resources they need in terms of succeeding in the project. And there is a lot of change management part to the resourcing aspect as well. But I think we have tried to create something that is simple to use in order to highlight what resources do I need, either from the project manager perspective or the line manager perspective, depending on how the organization is structured. And of course, we also support the different areas of business units. So that means we could have managers related. So it only is the line manager managing the resources he owns, or it could be the project manager that has access to the resource database and say, I need this and this person.
Yep. Awesome.
So we have different ways of doing it, but I think the main focus is what benefits do we get out of it, and figure out who are the main personas that should need to work with.
Yes, and that's awesome. And I think that would be, if we can give that kind of information or that kind of consulting to most businesses, it's a huge win. Right?
Yeah, and I have seen a resource management implementation that never flied because we tried to push it both to the project manager and line manager, and it was only one of the part that was actually eager to get a tool that would help them, right?
Yeah, and it's the same. I think the same story for xPM as well. Digitizing, getting into the cloud for information that is typically either stored in someone's head or on a piece of paper or on an Excel spreadsheet is kind of, it's a big movement, right? It's a lot of change, and resourcing is no different, as you've rightly pointed out. That's really good. So I mean, we could talk theory for, I think you did a level up for us internally for 2 hours, right? This could be a 2-hour conversation, but we are fitting this into kind of a very small period of time, the highlights, I guess. Before we get into the demo, I would just like to kind of lead us into that with kind of some talking about the tools, because I can see some people on the call right now who potentially have seen Team Planner or have Team Planner. Some may not know what we're talking about at all. So this may not pertain to you guys whatsoever, but Team Planner has been the thing that we have used as far as resource management goes, for ever since it was being built, right? Can you explain to me kind of what's changed there, and thinking in terms of when a customer comes to us and says, we want resourcing or we want resource management, how are you responding from a tool perspective?
Yes, and if I back up the story a little bit, Team Planner right now is actually Team Planner free. So there have been a lot of resource management tool prior to that inside Projectum's history.
Yes.
So this has been our focusing for basically all the time of Projectum, resource management, PPM, and now xPM, of course. But Team Planner has been focusing a lot on the pillars inside resource management, demand management, and capacity management, very much towards the matrix organization, and that means it's a very good fit. But we have also seen cases where when we're touching more on the line organization and maybe more to the pillars of resource planning and enterprise resource planning, Team Planner might not be a good fit. And we have seen that with customers, of course. And this has led me to basically think, okay, what can we do in terms of fitting that gap in a new way? Also with the xPM story, how can we support more in terms of resourcing when talking programs, portfolios, epics, all these kind of things we see nowadays, right? Because I think the market or how customers are seeing resourcing is changed over time as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It is not PPM anymore. It's not inside the IT business unit they need a resourcing tool, right? It is more different now. So we also need a tool that is more flexible. So Team Planner is still here to support those where it's actually a good fit, but now we have introduced something new, which we are called resource planning, that works directly inside xPM, so inside the Power Platform.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds very good, and I think it's really important to know as well. I think from your perspective, from a company perspective, that we are kind of Team Planner is not going anywhere.
Nope.
But we're looking at different ways to kind of handle our customers' needs with different tools. Right?
Yeah, I hope the resourcing framework, now I've done it for a few customers, help us lead to whether it's Team Planner or it's the resource planning.
That's the goal.
And I have tried both. So basically, I have someone saying we need the full triangle, everything, matrix organization. We are a good fit for the Team Planner. Perfect. That's perfectly fine. Then it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But I also hear that we are more towards the line organization, maybe only doing the strategic and tactical level. Then we have another fit, right? Another tool that can actually facilitate that.
Yes, awesome. Well, all that talking about tooling probably makes you you're itching to do a demo. So I think we're perfectly on time. So maybe do you want to show us some of these features and maybe show us some of this resource planning, this new thing in Dataverse, this new cool thing in Dataverse that's related to xPM, and maybe give a bit of an introduction to what we're about to look at?
Yes, please. So I will start sharing my screen in just a few seconds. So basically what I will show you is the new tool that we have developed in order to work with resources in a different aspect, very much towards the xPM story. So let's start off by sharing the screen. Basically, what you are seeing right now is me jumping directly into the resource planning heat map. But if I just take you one step back to the front page, because if you are working with Power PPM today, you probably know the front page, right? I'm coming into the system, and this is what I see with different links out here. We have introduced the resource heat map. So if I go in, it basically loads all resources and their commitments over time. So as you can see, I have a long list of resources here, Alexander, Ali, Amalie, etc., etc. And then I have a heat map to the right side, basically showing me how are they committed over time and are they overcommitted or not. I have a timeline, which I can basically go in and work with. So right now I'm showing the full year of 2025. And that's probably because this is the budget year, right? But it could also be me working in towards January or the full 2026, because soon the new budget roll is starting up, right? And this is typically how we see the commitments or the creating of resource plans or resource budget is. Then for each resource, I have the possibility to actually commit them to a initiative, epic, whatever kind of way we are working. In this case, I have set up a demo project already now, resource plan webinar. I can select it, and then you can see I get a new line for Andreas. I have this pen, or I can type directly into the grid. The pen, however, is actually helping me. So in this case, it will typically be a line manager or PMO or someone central working with resources, and I can go in and say, I need to commit Andreas to this project. It already says to me that, well, the project is starting on the 1st of May and it's ending at the end of October. So these are the dates you probably want to work with. Of course, I can go in and overrule that if you don't need to work the full time. I can go in and say he needs to work the amount of hours in percentage. So that could be 50%. And then it also Andreas 48 hours available. Right. And it says, well, half of that is 524, right? So I can insert that.
So I'm getting feedback straight away.
I'm getting feedback straight away, and I get what I need, right? Because I need to know the start and end date if I'm not the actual project manager, right? I need to help some guidance. And as you can see already here, it has put in the hours, and that's, of course, and how many days are available, right? Because there is not as many days in May, June, July. Right? And I get the full amount of hours, and so I can see something in here directly. What we are also capable of doing, because this is of course important for a line manager or something that work with resources first, right? But about this facilitates also working with programs or portfolios. It could also, of course, group by work elements. So if I group by work elements, I get all the initiatives, programs, portfolios, epics, products, whatever we are working with in here, right? And I have different icons to facilitate that, right? The first 5 or 6 is initiative. Then we have an epic, and probably down here I will be able to find some programs or portfolios.
Yep.
And not only are we facilitating that, we are facilitating custom columns. That could be priority, because one of the most important thing we hear is to commit resources based on the portfolio prioritization or ranking. Be able to say that approach is the most important project. Let's open that up and let's add resources to it, right? And I should be able to add Andreas in here, so we can go in there and find Andreas as well. And I can start putting hours into the grid. That could be 50 hours, 50 hours. Oh, sorry, and 50 hours here, right?
Yes.
So I'm able to work from different aspects.
Yes.
And not only are the work element important, but group by role. Well, because I want to identify. So business consult. It's yellow, not red, because I cannot say that it's all that is bad. I'm just telling you that there is someone in here that is over committed. In this case, and Sophie is working 2% too much. It's a choice or commitment, right?
Yes.
And then I can go in and I can downscale. Let's say it's 145 hours, and now everything is green. So I can correct and fix bottlenecks directly in here.
But it's also providing us with information to kind of have conversations, because while Anna Sophie might be 102, she might say, actually, I've got I've actually got a free time right now, or actually I feel like I'm 120.
Exactly.
Right,
And
facilitating that conversation.
Exactly. And for those who know Team Planner, you don't see the handshake as we talk about it, as you have this request on a generic resource versus the allocation, right? So this is happening somewhere else in staff meetings, at the coffee machine, emails, whatsoever, but there is still some kind of commitment between PM and line manager if that is what the process support.
Yes.
So this was showing from a central point of view, typically the line manager, the PMO, or the strategic or tactical level. But we have also, of course, introduced the operational level. So if we go to the projects, we have a long list of projects here. And if we find the resource planning demo or webinar here, I can go in. You can see we have all the metadata details. I have the expected start and finish down here, which we saw before. But I also have my resource plan. And this is not at the moment linked to the timeline because it's two different things. So the timeline is project manager and details have time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these people need to work with it. My resource plan is more, I need this resource for this much to succeed in the project and probably also be in my resource budget. So I have Andreas, and here you can see I can also start putting other people in. So Nick, I should be able to find you, select you, and actually put in the data the same way as we just saw before. In this case, 25%, and now we get data in here. Awesome. And the timeline is already filtering in your start name, so you're working within that area.
Yes, it's, I mean, how quickly you've just done that, but also that's now reflected in the line manager's view for them to kind of filter on their own department and kind of see what's going on.
Yes.
Do you maybe put just a few words to kind of the difference here, because right now we're looking at on the project level, right? As well, how does this kind of work in with the task level as well as the at the project level as well?
Yes. So of course this is something we have just recently developed, and we are still constantly looking into it and how we can prepare it. But from my point of view, it very much depends on how you is as a person or project manager. So what I see is project managers start to fill out a resource plan. I need Andreas and Nick for this much. This is converting into resource budget. I need some kind of approval before we can start. And in some cases, you might start in the timeline. So basically building your high-level plan with task 1, 2, and 3. And this will give you some kind of an indication. I need Andreas and Nick this much, but not the final, what you submit for approval. What I see, and this is also my roadmap for this, is that this should be connected, right? So I should be able to either build my resource plan coming from my timeline. So let's assume I build my high-level plan. I have Nick and Andreas. I could submit into a high-level resource plan, which could be taken into a decision on the strategical level, right? And I should be able to compare it, right? So I need to compare that I have planned 58, but that is not what I have been committed or approved, because when we are talking about this running, this is
of course, awesome, that's really good. You have, tell me the most important thing that you want to show the group before we
most important is, of course, portfolio part of it.
Of course it is, yes.
So we support the xPM, sorry. So that means a resource plan be connected to a portfolio as well. And as you can see in here, the resources working or contributing to this portfolio, but not all the portfolio is contributing to all of the projects that is, right? So you see all these initiatives, epics, and programs are something in relation to Tech Portfolio 2025. I need to make sure we have committed the right resources to the correct initiatives, epics, etc. This is what we can do with the new resource planning. And this is what is supporting the new ways of working and the xPM story.
Awesome. Great way to finish, Peter. Great way to round it up. Thank you all so much for joining. I didn't see too many questions in the chat, which means that you were just so engrossed into what Peter was saying that you were just, there was no time to chat. But if you have any questions, comments, please fire us an email. I'm just going to share the PDF version of some of the facts because I think it will really help some of our current customers or even new customers as well. But see you guys at the next webinar.
Thank you very much.